Guys, one of the most difficult parts in writing a resume is quantifying impact. Well, what does quantifying the impact actually mean? How do you quantify impact? Etc. are the kind of questions. But here are a few examples with respect to how you can quantify your impact as a software engineer or as a data scientist. Hello everybody, welcome to another weekend episode. And this weekend episode is going to be very important because we are going to talk about the single most important page of our careers, resume. Yes, this page is going to determine how much salary we are going to earn, which companies will give us an opportunity to even interview versus not, what will be our career transition be looking like. So to an extent, we need to ace how we present our resume because that is in fact the best version of ourselves in the corporate world. And to ace this game, I hope this video would be helpful. And this is a comprehensive attempt from my side so that you can go ahead and get started with creating your resume. And we'll make this video into 4 parts. Number 1 is the format that you need to be writing your resume in. Number 2, which is the most important factor, is the structure. We'll start off with the career summary, then we'll go into the work experience, then education skills, etc. The third one is what is the theme that you need to be thinking about in your resume. And number 4 is if there are any specific do's and don'ts in the overall resume setup. So let's get started with the first one, which is your overall format. Well, this is a format that I would highly recommend. A simple and boring format. And this is important because recruiters around the world are used to seeing this format. Recruiters typically look at your resume for 5 to 7 seconds. So if the format is something that they are comfortable with, it makes their life easier and they can understand and grasp the most important points that you are trying to say in those 5 to 7 seconds. If you are using some fancy format that recruiters are not used to, then it takes a lot of effort from their end to read through the resume and the first 5 to 7 seconds are just gone like that. So highly recommended, stick to that boring and the most widely used format. Now, if your university, college comes up with a recommendation and says that you need to have a photo on your resume, well, we have no option but to do that. Otherwise, stick to this boring format. Now, the other element within the resume is make sure there is no color coding. Well, there is no green, blue, black. Just stick to simple fonts, right? Arial, Calibri, that's it. No fancy fonts as such. Now moving on to the second one, which is the most important one. So I hope you have a pen and paper ready with you, is the structure of the resume. And where do we start this structure? It starts with the career summary. And should you have a career summary versus not? If you have 3+ years professional experience, I'm not including internships. I'm talking about full-time experience. If you have 2 or even 3 years or more experience, then you should have professional summary. And what should go into this summary? I would divide professional summary into 3 bullet points. The first bullet point is talking about your overall experience. You can say a professional with 3+ years of experience in the ITES services sector, working with clients from US and UK. That could be your first broad line. The second line could be about your technical expertise, expert at using frameworks, front-end frameworks, back-end frameworks, or content management systems, or whatever it is, right? You can talk about the languages, the frameworks in that second bullet. And in the third bullet, if any, you have to highlight your personality traits. It could be a team player, or you can even say some of your functional or a stakeholder manager experiences. For example, expertise in writing proposals or managing clients, right? The third point is pretty open-ended. You can tweak it according to your own strengths. I would highly recommend that if you believe something is a strong point in your resume, you have to make sure that it is coming in this summary section. People might or might not read the entire resume, but they will definitely give a good glance at the summary, and that is your wonderful opportunity to make that impression. That itself will create a $1 million resume for you. Now, moving on, the second portion is the work experience portion. And how do you write your work experience? Well, if you have worked in 5 different companies, it doesn't mean that you write 5 bullet points for each and every company. The meaning of the resume is that it is only highlights of your career which are relevant to the specific job. So before you jump in and start writing your work experience, a quick request would be to please go read the job description pretty closely and then understand what are the points that you want to highlight. Please don't write every single thing. Now, once you know which points you want to highlight, each bullet should be speaking about two things. Number one, what did you exactly do? And number two, what outcome did your work create? That's the impact. And as we have already seen, there are multiple ways in which you can talk about the impact of your overall resume. Just let's look at a few examples over here. Build RESTful APIs that served data to the JavaScript front end based on dynamically chosen user inputs that handled over 500,000 concurrent users. Now, you can see in this sentence, the first part is talking about what you actually did. And in the second part, we are talking about the impact of the work on 500,000 users. This is how you structure every single bullet point. Or another bullet point example could be introduced live debugging sessions with technical writers to identify issues in real time, which have resulted in almost 80% reduction in issues, leading to efficient and smooth software releases. Now you can see sometimes there could be numbers and sometimes there could be percentages in terms of impact. Well, in some situations, you might not even know the impact, which is fine, but your objective should be to at least write impact for 80% of the bullet points that are there on the resume. And this is where your resume is determined to be a good one or a bad one. On this note, let's look at our sponsor for the video, BeamJobs, a resume building platform. And this is a very interesting resume builder because their AI model will calculate a score for your resume based on factors that we talked about so far. How is the impact highlighted on each and every bullet? Is the resume well written? And is the structure maintained, etc.? And for this AI to work, you need to start with simply selecting a resume template. Of course, you can always change the template later. Once you select the template, you can select the industry, whether it's a software engineering specific resume or management consulting resume or whatever is the choice of your industry. And boom, you have a starting point. If you already have an existing resume, you can upload and get started with that as well. And then the interesting parts begin. As you tweak each section and each bullet on your resume, you can recalculate your resume score and make sure to understand which bullet is increasing or decreasing your overall resume score. This is a very effective way to get to a great resume quickly. So click on the link in the description and get started with building your $1 million resume today with BeamJobs. Now moving on to the next important section of the video is your skills section. Well, do you need to write your skills section? Absolutely yes, because a lot of the resumes are first going through the ATS systems. And what are ATS systems? These are applicant tracking systems where a robot is trying to go through and see if this particular resume is suitable for the role and is it worth the recruiter's time versus not. So for you to pass through these ATS systems, you need to be very robust in writing the skills section. I would never say write something that you don't know. Please don't do that at all, because if somebody asks you a question in the interview, then you just have to stare at them, which is not good at all. Rather, you take your chances right now itself and say, I don't even know that. So there are multiple ways for you to write your skills section. Number one, you can say advanced proficiency. You can write a few tools and you can say beginner level proficiency. Or the other way you can write it is you can divide the skills section into programming languages and frameworks and tools. Or you can write about in terms of certifications received and other skills. So there are multiple ways in which you can divide this skills section, but it is important you actually write the skills section. Now the next section that we need to talk about is your education section. In the education section, please write all the degrees or all the education courses that you have pursued in the last 5 years. Please don't go back and write your 10th class or even 8th class marks. If not necessary, just ignore them. Well, if you have already 5 years experience, nobody is going to look at your 10th class marks. So please just stick to graduation and above. And even graduation and above, if you have relevant work experience, just mention the coursework. And in BeamJobs, when you are trying to switch through individual fields and trying to tweak individual fields, you will get those options for tweaking the relevant courses itself. So please understand that you need to highlight your relevant coursework and not necessarily talk about your 10th class marks. Then finally, if you are interested, you can go ahead and write your hobbies. But please don't mention that, hey, I love Bahubali or something else, right? Which is not relevant for your interview and for your professional career. Just don't write that. You can always say that you have played a specific sport because that shows your ability regarding teamwork or your ability to overcome obstacles or challenges. So these things do add value to your resume. But saying that, hey, I love to watch Friends, I'm a big Bahubali fan, these things don't really make a lot of sense. So think about what are the hobbies that you want to write as well. Now coming back and just highlighting some of the most common resume mistakes that I see people commit is number one, not sticking to that basic template. Coming up with some weird fancy formats. Please don't do that. It is very easy for the recruiters to read a boring resume than a very fancy and colorful resume. The second one, ensure you write in every single bullet the impact that your work has created. If you do this, your AI resume score would be in 90s, which is what you should be aiming for. And finally, I would say resumes will take a lot of time to iterate. So show it with your friends and take their feedback and improve it continuously along with automated tools. Thank you so much, guys. I hope this video is helpful and we'll see you again in the next one. Bye-bye.